Welcome, everybody, to Too Legit to Crit, a tabletop role-playing podcast hosted by two guys who are about as useful as a crit table when Justin is rolling. Who are so dumb, they provoke attacks of opportunity when they try and think. Who would apply to be the next WotC president, but unfortunately, we're unable to unhinge our jaws to devour small woodland creatures and baby seals. Two people who think procrastination is a school of magic. Two guys who roll out of bed with disadvantage. Two people who would power word kill Elmo for giving us feelings.
I had something I wanted to talk about today because it's something.
Have I done something? I feel like I've done something wrong. Like,
Not you.
It wasn't me, I swear.
Not you, but some people. So it's something we've touched on a few times, but we've never really discussed it properly.
All right.
And it's metagaming, right? Because let's be honest, it's a problem that it comes up all the time on the forums, on Reddit, on fucking anywhere that people discuss TTRPG. At some point, metagaming comes up, right? Now, obviously, it sucks. Like if it's done wrong, because I believe there is a right way to do it, but if it's done wrong, it sucks. So I wanted to have a chat about some of the ways that you can bring meta knowledge into a game without ruining the game.
A blog post about this a couple of months back, maybe. And it's not necessarily about bringing meta knowledge into the game. It's about the GM using meta knowledge to create atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I posted an example of one of the things I've done in the past where because obviously going on virtual, you've got a lot more things you could do, but like accidentally leaving a token on a map where it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Oops.
And obviously the players go and they see it and it's a big fuck off token. Just forget you saw that. They're not going to forget they saw that. But no. That creates a mood. It creates attention, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing here. So like when I'm setting up, I'll deliberately get out huge models that I have no intention of using and put it on the desk for later. It's essentially the same thing, right? But it's also
music changes is another one.
Yeah.
You just change the music discreetly and just let the players' imaginations kind of run wild with them.
Why is there boss music? Why is there boss music playing right now?
No reason.
But
have a potion.
I wanted to more look at it from the point of view of if you are, you're DMing, GMing, whatever the acronym is for your particular system of choice, right? And you happen to have a metagamer at your table. Because it does happen. It sucks when it happens if it's not handled right. Some of the ways that you can deal with it without causing a massive issue. Because I've been on the receiving end of a metagamer in a group as a player, who I now will flat out just not play games with anymore because of stuff that happened in that campaign and stuff that I've seen happen in other campaigns with this particular person. And I've also, because obviously once you've read the books, you can't help but have a lot of knowledge about some of the monsters and stuff like that, right? I wanted to maybe talk about some of the ways that you can have that knowledge as a player, bring it to your character, but without metagaming, essentially, right? And the example that I had for that was when I was playing in another campaign, we were actively seeking out a beholder to go and fight because we needed one of his eyeballs for a ritual, blah, blah, blah. Usual fantasy stuff. You need the eye of a beholder for a particular spell. So I, obviously, having read the Monster Manual cover to cover many, many times, already know a lot about one of the most iconic creatures in the game. But I wanted to bring...
be fair, as a non-D&D person, even I know about fucking beholders.
Exactly, right? So I wanted to bring some of the knowledge that I had into character, but without kind of breaking that wall, right, of what I know versus what my character knows. And we had a session where we had some downtime in a city, So I spent that downtime going to the library to research the beholder that we were going to go and fight in character, which then let me bring that knowledge into the game. So things like that, where you can, in character, gain knowledge that you have out of character.
Right. I don't think that qualifies necessarily as meta knowledge. Yes, it's something you knew about the creature. However, you did not apply that. You found a way around it to kind of apply that to your character, but you would have been able to do that without your prior knowledge anyway. So,
yes.
For example, let's say it wasn't a beholder. Let's say it was a unique creature that you, as a player, have never seen before. And they go, you need the eye of this creature, blah, blah, blah. It would be within reason for your character to kind of go, I think we need to find out more information about this.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't see that as meta knowledge. All right. When people talk about meta knowledge and the sort of downside to meta knowledge, they're always talking about the misuse of meta knowledge, as opposed to the fact there's no way that you can stop from knowing things.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Case in point, you are starting a new campaign and you meet up with all the players and kind of go, what are you playing? What are you playing? Okay, right, I'll play a barbarian. That's meta knowledge.
Yeah.
However, that is accepted because it's necessary and you kind of create the narrative around it.
Yeah.
However, for example, getting thrown up against a creature, and in between sessions I look up this creature, especially in something like Pathfinder where everything you need is freely available legally on the internet.
Yeah.
So all I have to do is Google and just kind of go, oh, this creature has this ability. Oh, well, I'd better prepare my spells accordingly. That's being a dick.
Yeah. But
okay, so I've got one for you. As a GM, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to appreciate this. Okay. All right, let's talk about the player whose every character is some iteration of the chosen one. How many times have you encountered that?
I don't think I can actually say right now on live.
For me, it's many. Like, okay, so, right, my character... they had a dream once, and in this dream, they told them to travel to this place and meet these adventures. I'm going, fuck off. No, it's not happening.
No, there's no chosen ones. There's no, well, nah. Fate is a thing in my games. Fate. But there's no, like, mystical, like, you're the next offspring of the blah, blah, blah. No, like, I remember when I was doing, like, written role-playing, when I was in, like, junior high and high school, there was all these people that were, like, my eyes are 2 different colors and I have wings and a cat tail, but like I'm only half dog and all these, and I'm like, what the hell? And that's what reminds me of it. It's just like I'm the chosen. I'm a better than it's no.
Yeah,
no.
and it's. I mean, I love it because it's one of those things where I don't know why, but it kind of gives them a sense of if I tell the GM I'm the chosen one, that means I'm protected. Like, no. That means I'm going to target you. Yes.
Like Connell does this all the time, where like I don't want to be a focus in his games because that usually means pain and suffering. Like, no, I'll be a support character. It's fine. Like, no, it's fine. But no, yeah, I get chosen one requests all the time, and it's not even on purpose. I don't think. I don't think
it's
always the delicate balance of like
I think it's a heavy trope. I think it is.
Yeah.
It is a heavy trope especially in the fantasy realm, where people are going, "Oh yeah, there's a chosen one." It's like, no, you're not. You haven't been selected. You haven't had a calling. You know, you are just as susceptible to death as everybody else.
Yeah. Like, we've had deities and gods in our games, and even at that, there's no chosen one. Usually, it's an oops. Like,
this is what we should do. The next time, say, "Oh yeah, you've been chosen by this god, Dave. who is, and then they get to meet Dave, and Dave's like, "Who the fuck are you?"
I am so for that. That's great.
Like, they meet their god, and their god's like, "And you are?"
Oh, I'm a chosen one, dude. I like pass out 10 of those a day. Like...
I was drunk. I was drunk, and I thought I was dialing somebody, and it ended up being you. This is awesome.
Right. Oh, that was supposed to be Jamie with a Y, not Nai. Sorry, bro.
Shit. So, and how long have you dedicated? 25 years. Ooh. Well,
whoops. Can we like work on the paperwork on that? It's kind of a one-way deal. Like,
yeah, my bad. And yeah, them's the breaks.
I'm gonna use that.
You should.
I just actually had an idea. I'm gonna use that.
I came up with combo traits, which are traits that combine when you have when you have reached your cap level in your sub skills.
Yeah.
Two magical sub skills. You can then buy this trait, which gives you an additional ability.
Okay.
And then we expand upon the planes of existence. We mentioned them. They have a very brief write-up in the core book, but we've expanded upon them and really fleshed them out to where it's and added new traits associated with them, so that you can explore these areas. You may not want to, but one of the cool things that I really enjoyed was that we have, obviously the Fey plane. There's Infernal plane where demons come from. And then there's the astral plane, which is horrifyingly dangerous and terrifying. But then there's the internet. The internet is considered its own plane of existence.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so there's techno witches who, there's hackers, and then there's magical hackers, and then there's techno witches who, there's a house of techno witches that they planar travel to the internet. Basically projecting themselves into the internet, which is kind of neat.
That just sounds fucking awesome.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I want to play that.
Oh, absolutely. We can talk about all that because when we do the idea, one of the things that's also coming with the Kickstarter, one of the add-ons was that if you buy one of the add-ons, which is like I think $100 add-on, you get a 1-year subscription to play. I'm starting in February. We're starting a game on our official Discord server. Of Covenant Crucible. It's once a month. Second Saturday of every month is going to be a big gathering, and there's going to be plot and everything. But then you have access to the server 24/7, so you can do soft role play with all your friends. You can actually then say, "Hey, I have my circle of friends. We would like to run a scenario. Can we hire you as a storyteller?" Absolutely. It's a flat $10 a month per person, or $10 a month for your subscription for that, and that's and then you get your own private downtime channel because there's downtime actions. You get help with character creation, and then the once a month game, and then access to the soft RP areas where you can role play with other players at any time. So that's going to be in the that's what the Kickstarter is. Not really mentioned in Unbound, but that's one of the things that I'm pretty excited for. And that because of that, obviously the rules have to be ready by February. And so I'm going to have a write-up of the rules. That's not going to be the full-fledged, PDF or hard copy, but the rules will be in a format of a sectional format, a PDF, so it's easy access. Everybody can access it. And then, so when we do the actual play with you guys with the crit list, it's going to be those rules as well. So
yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it, and even more now. You said techno. You said techno witches, and that's what I want to be.
It's awesome. I've had a lot, and we've play tested it a little bit. We haven't really delved too much into it, but we're going to be doing that sometime in the near future before the game actually starts, just to make sure the mechanics are sound.
Yeah.
But it's the same as planar travel. I mean, we've created all sorts of like denizens specifically for the internet. Instead of demons, they're daemons, DAEMONS.
Yes.
And they're basically like code that's in a form that will. So there's all sorts of cool stuff. And all sorts of some fake creatures. I posted one this morning on Instagram, the Catkin. They're like, oh look, they're little thumb-sized cats that grow on a tree. There's like hundreds of them in this tree. That's so cute. And you step on one, all of a sudden they swarm you. You are eaten. It's terrifying. And then there's things, yeah.
It's a real shame that Justin couldn't join us, because I think this whole internet witches and all that with the Daemons, I think he'd just be losing his nut. But probably more than I am right
awesome.
now.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to chatting more about it and getting you guys characters made up, and we can.
Definitely.
If everybody wants to play Techno Witches, we can do that too. That'd be awesome.
I don't know. You said a couple of them, and I'm kind of going, okay, criminal sounds interesting.
That too. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. One of the playtests we have one of the houses is the Baba Yagas, as you might imagine, are scary and terrifying. And they in Chicago, the Wednesday night playtest, the voice group, they're known as It's Crime Time, because that's what they do. They recently orchestrated a heist from the Federal Reserve in Chicago. They stole like $100 million. It was amazing. And then they instantly, like 2 weeks ago, I think we orchestrated a theft of the supply room, the Louvre, which was also because they had magical defenses as well as mundane defenses, and it was really, really cool to see this in action. So, and to be a part of it, because I'm actually getting to play on Wednesday night. So,
it definitely sounds like it sounds like a bit of me. It sounds like something that I could really sing.
Well, I'm excited. That's great.
Yeah,
I just want to get this out to everybody, because I think there's something for everyone in here, even if they don't even if they're not into witches or not into whatever. That's why we really want to get to that shift or stretch goal, so we can submit the mechanics in Unbound for playing a werewolf, or we have a group of were raccoons that are a criminal circle. It's hilarious. Their leaders, right? Oh yeah, they're hilarious, and their leader is a possum named Randall. It's this gigantic possum who just sits in this panoramic painted van with a wizard on the side. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it's I just want to get it out there to people so they can see that there's something for them.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. I mean, the more we're talking about it, the more intrigued I am, the more excited I am to actually give this a whirl. But yeah, thank you to everyone who sends in submissions. Don't stop doing it. Give us let us see what you're working on. Let us see what you're creating. We want to see it, and we want to see people who are far more talented than us.
Which is everyone.
Which is everyone, really.
Yeah, it's not hard. But shall we?
We shall. We
to the lounge.
Take a. I like that. You're gonna have to do that every episode now.
Oh man.
I'm just gonna keep quiet for you to do that, because
Well, we are only rolling a D2 today, so we could probably just flip a coin.
I was gonna go odds or evens on a D20.
Fair enough. All right. Well, odds, couch, evens, Chris.
Evens it is on a 16.
Cool. Oh, let's see. Chris has got one topic for us.
Okay, so which is kind of fitting.
It is actually. That's actually kind of fun.
All right. So, what characters from either movie or TV have you seen and felt that you had to make into an NPC? I've got one off the bat.
Okay, you go first because I need a chance to think.
All right. And I have actually created this. All right. So, after Skulls and Shackles, when that campaign kind of split, and I took Couch and Chris in one direction, flying on a ship across the different planes of existence and all this.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up in the realm of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Shadow Realm is called in Pathfinder. And in the Shadow Realm, they met vampires.
You went to the Shadow Realm, did you?
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a Yu-Gi-Oh joke.
Dude, I've never seen Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, you should. It's funny. But anyway, carry on.
But anyway, so they went to this place, the Shadow Plane, and they met a group. And I did a bit of a mystery thing where the villains were initially, it initially looked like the villains were the vampires, but it turns out the vampires weren't, and all this.
I like
And
that.
I had one vampire in there that I directly pulled from a thing. And I'm
Is
going
it
to
the Count?
describe this. Nope. No. All right, so I'm going to describe this character, and I'm going to test your knowledge of vampire movies here.
Oh God.
Okay. So the class he was a skald. All right. So it is a bard,
Right.
but like mixed with barbarian.
A barbarian.
All right. So basically, like big, strong, can hit like a fucking sledgehammer, but also plays music. And he was playing a wind instrument. All right. And he was walking around a lot of the time with no top on. Can you name that character? He hasn't even got a name.
No.
Have you ever seen The Lost Boys?
No.
Dude, I'm gonna have to show you on YouTube.
Yeah.
In The Lost Boys, there's one scene, all right, of they're at a festival, and there's this dude on a stage built like a brick shithouse playing a saxophone. And I just went, I need to make him an NPC. It's like the most fucking 80s thing ever. And the beauty of it is the dude is an actual musician.
Yeah. So it's actually him.
It's actually him. It's
so
not
much
just.
better. Yeah, that's so
And
much better.
like, I need to send you pictures. I feel like I need to introduce you to this.
Ooh,
And I'm trying to remember the guy's name because
that did give me an idea though.
You'll be able to Google it. You go on with your idea. I'm going to Google this.
I was going to say, I think going off of what you just said, I think it could be quite cool to have like the players completely overwhelmed by vampires and then have like Blade come in and save them.
Yeah, fair
as
enough.
an NPC, like Blade just shows up, kills them all, and then looks at them like fucking waste of time. You know, like he does in Blade Trinity, when he meets like Ryan Reynolds and all the other hunters. And he's like,
yeah,
you guys are fucking amateurs. Stay out of my fucking way. He essentially does that to the party and then just leaves.
Yeah, I mean that could work, and I think we've started down a rabbit hole here, but I mean, I was just saying, and this idea is nowhere near mine. This idea was a TV show that they wanted to do, but I don't think it ever came to fruition. But what I would do is I would actually do the Lost Boys from the movie The Lost Boys, and in the TV show, and it sounded like an amazing fucking concept because obviously vampires are immortal. Each series would be set in a different time period with the same characters.
That's
so
cool.
You know, you'd have like Victorian era where you've got them as young, sort of Victorian teenagers, as it were, and then obviously you move on, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's another period in time, maybe it's like the early 20s, and again they're the same there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, the Lost Boys, that kind of sent me down that rabbit hole. As far as characters, come on, we need to think of more.
We do.
We need to think of more. I'm stepping away from vampires. I'm not.
Yeah, well, I'm stepping away, but in that same kind of space. The Winchesters could be fun to build as like, you know, another adventuring party that like maybe gets to some jobs before the party do, right? If you know, like how, like we always say, right? The world keeps spinning. So
yeah.
If there's like maybe a job post on the notice board in the town of like, oh yeah, there's a goblin infestation just outside of town, but they dick around for too long, the Winchesters got it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So something like that could be cool.
All right, so bouncing off that 100%, and I've probably done it far too many times to count already. Crowley.
Yeah.
No, who do you think I was trying to Krampus in creating the Nerdverse? Who do you think I based?
I got that. That I did catch. Still can't believe I missed. Well, I mean, actually, there you go. That whole campaign was based on film and TV characters.
Yeah, the most recent one wasn't, but the first two.
The first
2 episodes.
Yeah.
It was so leaned on. But yeah, I mean, there's so many good characters, but I think we're missing a really. I'm just trying to think. We must be missing like a really good fucking character. Just someone that you just see and just kind of go, how awesome would he be as an NPC?
Phil from Hercules.
Remind me.
The goat man that trained Hercules.
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, yeah. Danny DeVito. Just Danny DeVito as a character would be fucking amazing.
That would be pretty
Did you see the
funny.
story that Arnold Schwarzenegger told about the time where he was smoking cigars with Danny DeVito, and Danny said to him, you always provide the cigars. I got some cigars. This time we're smoking my cigars. So they smoked them, and then they went to go and film the next scene, and Arnold forgot all of his lines. Completely went out of his head. Turns out, what Danny DeVito had done is scooped out some of the tobacco and stuffed it with weed. And he just got Arnold high because he only smoked the first part of the cigar.
I mean, when they added him to It's Always Sunny,
yeah,
that show just went from good to fucking incredible.
I mean, he's just an amazing actor. He's so good.
Yeah.
So just
but before you mentioned Danny DeVito, I had one in mind. Right, I've got one. I've been watching Foundation on Apple TV, and it has in it for me what is one of the greatest villains ever.
Okay.
And I think having this guy. So basically, the whole concept for this villain is, it is a genetic dynasty. So they are clones. They're all clones of each other. There's always three. There's three active at the same time. There's Dawn, Day, and Dusk. Dawn obviously is the child.
Yeah.
Day is the adult, and Dusk is the elderly.
Old, yeah.
And obviously, when one dies, another one is activated. So it's essentially the same person, and a lot of the mythos about it is, are they the same person? Their clones have been raised the same, they've had the same influences, but are they really the same person? However, Brother Day, who is the adult one, he performs a couple of acts during the course of the series, which are horrifying as a villain, and it's sociopathic, and it like immediately grabbed me. I mean, there's one where there is quite a drastic terror attempt on his homeland, and he suspects it is another planet. Like the next door planet, let's say.
Yeah.
So when diplomats from that planet come to visit him and to try and say, yeah, hey, it wasn't us, sort of thing. First of all, he captures them. Standard.
Yep.
He parades them in front of his populace. He kills all of their servants by hanging them. And then he gets an armada of his ships to surround the planet of these diplomats and nuke the ever-loving fuck out of it. And then turns around to the diplomats and goes, you can go now. So, yeah. Imagine that as your big bad.
Fuck. Yeah, that's insane. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So imagine that as your
Team Rocket. Complete opposite end of the spectrum. Bad guys that are just completely inept, right? You've got Jesse and James, and they're just complete. And every time they try and fuck with the party, it just never works.
Monster Hearts was the first thing I played outside of D&D. And then that led to things like World of Darkness, which is still a very crunchy system, but has a lot of interesting things embedded into it to lend to the role play, like with all the lore and everything as well. I haven't played Blades in the Dark yet, but it is definitely high on my list. And then I found 10 Candles, which is a really fun one. It's more of a one-shot system. So it's the whole premise of it is that the characters are going to die by the end. So it's a horror-based it's a horror-based system. And you get a pool of D6s and things become a bit more difficult, but it's also one of those systems that's very improv-based. There are very few steps to character creation. I think the longest game I've had of it was around 6 hours,
Hmm.
in its entirety of putting together the characters and running the one shot itself. But, the whole point of it is that there's the players and then there's them, which this enemy can be anything depending on what the players decide. So, like, I've had some that were, like, werewolves that were, these weird, like, bug creatures. The players will usually sort of give some sort of descriptor to it that will lend to the GM's running of how they affect the story, but their one weakness is the light. And in this world
Okay.
that has been enshrouded in darkness, these players have to find some sort of hope and do their best to find a way to survive. And
That sounds really interesting. I mean, you had me when you said horror. That was yeah,
Mhm.
that was, you said horror and all of a sudden I kind of, sat up like a meerkat.
Mhm. See, it's funny because I don't really like horror movies, but I love horror TTRPGs.
100% the same. I'm not a I mean, I don't mind horror literature. I don't like horror movies.
Mhm.
I don't like horror video games. But, any sort of book or a tabletop role playing game where,
Mhm.
yeah, I eat that up. And I do
Mhm.
enjoy horror. Because I think it is, again, a visceral reaction from the players. When the players are afraid, it's a genuine thing. It's not
Mhm.
them pretending. We ran a Delta Green one shot
Mhm.
that Justin was a part of. I'm not going to go into how Justin's character died, but it was funny. But beside that, um, the one shot is designed to be an escalating threat. The
Mhm.
the things you start seeing initially are innocuous enough, but there is a progression and things get more and more sinister and more twisted. And one of the players, after about an hour and a half into the game, went, "We've not done anything," and I'm petrified. Because it was just the expectation of things going wrong.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, one of the reasons why I love that system is just it does that horror carries across really well.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because 'cause I've played both Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, and I think both of those lean into that horror aspect of creating that expectation that something is going to go wrong. Uh, and they lean into it very differently because uh, Juicy was the one who introduced me to Delta Green, and I played in a streamed one shot, with them, called Operation Excelsior, and it was interesting because it seemed very innocuous at first, and slowly, she started adding in all of those layers, like, uh, of the weird monster that we kind of encountered in this underground, like, tunnel below a subway that Delta Green had sent our agents to go speak to. And then we returned from that tunnel. And I remember this was the moment that my character had like a sanity break because I failed the sanity roll. Because we left that tunnel and all of a sudden she was the first to realize that 3 weeks had passed since they'd walked into that tunnel. And it was just that moment of, because in and of itself, there was no jump scare in that moment. There was no truly like things that you would see in a horror movie that people use to get an audience reaction. There was just a genuine, I just lost 3 weeks of my life walking into a tunnel.
Yeah.
And it just completely broke her brain to the point that she essentially found the nearest passerby and freaked out on them. And seeing that happen versus some of the stuff that you see come out of horror movies has a different connotation to it in play.
Yeah, I think that is existential horror in a nutshell. There are no rules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're dealing with like horror movies and most horror stories, there is a certain formula. There is a certain okay, this thing can exist within the parameters of this story that we are telling. Whereas when you get to existential horror, which Call of Cthulhu, Delta Green, Achtung Cthulhu are all parts of, it's like, yeah, there are no rules anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is quite feasible in a Delta Green game to walk into a tunnel and walk back out 3 weeks later with no recollection. And the one that we ran for Justin and a couple of friends is PX Poker Night. It is designed to be a sort of intro scenario to Delta Green. And the insanity mechanics in that are slightly different than Delta Green because there are predefined actions. So when this character goes insane, this is what they do. And one of the character went insane, and what his card told him to do was you basically strip down naked and you kill anything and everything you see.
Oh.
And it was just so happened that he was away from the rest of the party when this happened. And Justin's character went, I'm going to go check on him.
Oh, no.
So, and Justin didn't know this was going on because I was private messaging the other player kind of going, all right, so this is what happens to you. So Justin's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go. So this other player's messaging me and going, yeah, bring him now. And yes, he promptly got shot in the face.
Sounds about right.
It was an epic death, though. I will give him that.
That
Justin,
does sound like...
If Justin does something really good, it's dying in character.
That's definitely a fun thing to be known for, but I wouldn't get super attached to my characters at that point because it's like, okay, if I know it's going to die, then why would I create those tethers for myself?
But sometimes that can be a lot more fun because you've the sort of set. What is he? Justin is actually showing us. Is that your D&D Beyond character roster? Justin has literally just shown us.
That is my D&D character. Like all my D&D Beyond characters is what I just scrolled through there. Yes, I build lots of them so I don't get attached.
That is completely fair.
I do. I brought it up earlier, and I'm going to go on a rant now because I'm pissed off. So, Tales of the Valiant.
Where I get the shorts from.
Yes, Tales of the Valiant. They put out an example of the monk character, like the monk class. I was going to say character sheet, the class sheet for monk. Now, I read through it. There is one change to this whole class between a 5e monk and this monk. Do you want to know what that change is? It's not called key points anymore. They're called techniques. That's it. That's all they did. That's the only change. The costs are the same. The way they work are the same. Everything is the same. It's just called technique points instead of key points, which makes no fucking sense.
I like technique points.
I was about to say, because some people are martial artists.
Yeah, but the whole point of key and key points is it's the amount of energy in your body to do that technique, right? If it's just a technique you know, no. Because if it's just a technique you know, there isn't a limit on how many times I can throw a punch in a day. That's a technique. A punch is a technique. Throwing a special kind of punch that uses the key in my body, the energy within me, that's different.
It's different then. It's a different class.
No, it's the same fucking class because the techniques are the same. They haven't even changed the fucking techniques. The techniques in here are the same things you get to use your key points on in 5e.
But does the 5e monk use key?
Yes.
Whereas the Tales of the Valiant one doesn't.
It uses techniques.
So it's different.
No, it's not. It's the fucking same. I will die on this hill.
Different.
It's the fucking same. Literally.
Right, so thank you. Thank you, Justin, for that very different class.
I will slap you, I swear to God. Even the starting equipment's the same.
Yeah, but they don't use key. So it's different.
Even the fucking martial arts die that you get to increase with are the fucking same. The key point is the same. The unarmored movement is the same. The class abilities are the same.
But do they use key?
I'm gonna slap you both, I swear to God. It's the same. So basically, yeah, they've made a big deal about putting out the monk, and it's just the 5e monk, and it took them this long to Control F the word key and change it for technique.
F?
Control F means find.
Oh.
It's the shortcut for find on a
I thought
document.
you were talking about copying and pasting. I was like, that is
Essentially.
So before before Justin pops an embolism.
Right.
But Atlas, have you got anything else for us?
I do, and it's a lot more chill and relaxed.
I'll be the judge of that. 5e in general, I love it. I know a lot of people don't. Where do you kind of stand on the whole 5e versus some of the other systems you've played and that sort of thing?
Oh man, this is such a loaded question in so many ways.
Yes, it is.
I enjoy 5e, especially having come from 3.5, which was like, just do you like dictionaries and math, right? Like 3.5 was just like, oh, I'm gonna make an attack roll. Let me go. All right, I gotta go look up. Okay, I have a +3 from this thing. All right, I gotta roll an extra d6 here. And you're like, okay, I have a 43 to hit. I don't know. Does that hit? And it really has kind of that, like, I think D&D had a trajectory of like old school was very just like, do whatever you want. We'll figure out what the dice are. You know, that's why OSR games are so like, yeah, you roll a d20 and we'll figure out if it does a thing, right? Yeah. Like that's kind of the whole, yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, to 3.5, which was like, we are going to codify everything. Literally, there are rules for jumping off of a balcony, grabbing onto a chandelier, doing a backflip, and stabbing someone. Like that, just ridiculous. And then I think 5e really took a lot of that and kind of like toned it down, right? It made it more video game-esque, made it more accessible. I think in doing that, they lost a little bit of the vibe of D&D. There's some of the things that I liked about 3.5 got lost in 5e, but I think overall it's a very accessible system for people to get into, especially starting out with games. It works really well for APs because it's just accessible. People know the rules. You're not also in the middle of trying to explain like what the game is, also trying to be like, and in this weird system that we're using, here's why you roll a D8 and not a D20 or whatever.
Yeah.
But all that said, I love OSR games and like the other stuff too. But 5e is definitely powerhouse in the TTRPG space.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of I started out playing Pathfinder, which obviously was essentially 3.5 part 2.
Yep.
And yeah, I kind of ran into the same thing where it was, you know, it got to a point where you were rolling so many dice that it felt like you needed like a degree in maths just to figure out whether you could attack something or not half the time. And then I got introduced to 5e at a local club that we had that do like TTRPGs and all that sort of thing. I thought I'd give 5e a try there, and it was just, it's so straightforward, and there's no like insane power creep that happens either, which I really liked, because that was one of the things that, like, you know, Pathfinder, by the time you hit 6th level, you're rolling 20 dice to hit. And that just doesn't happen in 5e, and I quite like that. And like I say, it does make it, especially for things like, you know, streaming an AP or something like that, it is a lot easier, because you're not seeing one person roll 50 dice and another person roll 3 and going, well, hang on a minute. The only time that really happens is when the rogue is attacking, because they've got all their fucking sneak attack dice.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think 5e is very interesting, kind of just across the board. Like, it feels like a system that you can really like master. That, like,
yeah,
for the most part, if you learn the rules, if you read the DMG, you read the player's handbook, like, you're gonna have a pretty good grasp on how the game plays. Whereas with a lot of previous games, 3.5, Pathfinder, I think very similarly, like, you might master your class. You might be like, I'm really good at playing rogue because I've played it enough that I understand the 40,000 rules that come into this thing. But yeah, it's interesting. I do wish there were more rules in 5e for just like general role play stuff. I think there's a lot of rules for combat. There's a lot of rules for like very specific, okay, you're trying to persuade someone, like that kind of stuff. But at times it's just kind of a weird, wanting to do something that's not just codified directly. It's a lot of hand wavy. GM just says, go do a thing. And that's what I like about a lot of the third party games, the OSRs, the various other kind of indie games that are out there. A lot of those codify a lot more of that like storytelling thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been finding a lot more recently, because so in the last probably 4 or 5 months, I've started playing a lot more, just a lot more systems, to be honest, because I was very, very limited in what I'd been playing up until recently. And it's been really interesting to see the way some stuff is just handled differently by different systems. And there's a lot of stuff that I've come across and been like, oh, that'd be really cool to bring across. Or like the one thing that I've always found has never really been done really, really well in stuff that I've played so far is like traveling or like downtime sort of mechanics and stuff like that. There's never really been something where I've sat down and gone, this is a really cool way to spend downtime. Those sessions always kind of feel a bit, well, I don't really know what I want to do, so I'm just gonna do this. And those bits always kind of, so that's the next big thing I'm looking out for, is something where I can do that.
Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan when I GM, which isn't very often anymore. I like to actually pull in other games. Yeah. When I can, like if there is downtime, if there is travel time, things like that, I think it's a really cool and interesting way to like pull in a different game and say, okay, we're going to, you're in the middle of downtime, so we're going to switch over to this like rule set. Blades in the Dark, I think, has some interesting things. I think people who limit themselves to a single system are missing out on the possibility of doing some really cool stuff. Blades in the Dark, very specifically, I like for running like heists in a game. Like you can pretty easily translate a 5e character into a Blades in the Dark character, and then basically just use the like heist rule set of Blades in the Dark to like run a heist in a 5e game, which I think is really cool. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Blades is one that I've actually recently, I played my first game of Blades just before Christmas.
Nice.
And it was so cool. I fell in love with it. John actually ran that game, and it was so much fun. And yeah, I mean, like you say, the crossover is there. Like it's very, very obvious to see. But I never really thought about combining two games like that. That would actually be a lot of fun.
I think once you kind of pull yourself out of the limiting yourself to a single game, right? Like, oh, we're playing 5e, we have to do everything in 5e, which is where you get everybody trying to be like, oh, we'll just hack it into 5e. Like, oh, I want, space mechs in my 5e game. And you're like, it's kind of not built for that. Like, find a space mech game, convert it a little bit, and then use that instead. I don't know. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I need to play more Delta Green. Oh.
Yeah, that's I didn't really want to clue Justin into this because he had an episode a couple of weeks ago where himself and Conlin, Lich Dad, they went to town on their D&D 5e shenanigans. And I was just sat there going, just wait. Just wait.
You say that like I don't enjoy. You say that like I don't enjoy Delta Green.
I know you've played a session with us. You did 2 sessions. You have enjoyed it. I can't wait to bring you more into the fold. But yeah, so Juicy, you and I do have a shared love, and that is of the program. What got you into Delta Green?
It's funny actually. I remember when I was obsessed with Monsters and Other Childish Things years ago, I saw the current version release art and I was like, oh, too many guns, no thanks. But then Glass Cannon did their one shot during the pandemic of Delta Green. I was like, I need this game in my life. I need this now. Holy shit. Gimme. And then I became obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was Glass Cannon as well.
Yeah.
Just it was like, they played it because they did Glass Cannon. Glass Cannon did Last Things Last. That was their one shot, and that's the one you played recently.
Oh,
with Clive Bowman, etc. I won't. No spoilers here.
With my.
Yeah, Justin was a social media manager.
Oh, that's amazing.
I managed the social media for the CDC.
I love it. Yes.
So they played that.
Everything.
They played that, and then they did The Last Equation.
Oh, that's yep.
And that's the one that really got me.
Yeah.
The last Equation. It was so fucking funny. And it was just in my wheelhouse. It was, I can do the horror, but I can also do the comic relief.
Same.
And
yeah.
And it's just such a good system.
Yeah, and I think they did it really well. Like they did Delta Green, I think, perfectly. Where Delta Green gets very dark and very harsh. And I think you need to balance that a bit with a little absurdity somewhere when you're either playing or performing it in order to make it varied in a way that is, I think, easier for most people to really consume it. Because otherwise Delta Green can be very harsh. And I like that personally every now and then, but I also like it to be sort of balanced like a roller coaster. So they presented it in a way that made me really like Delta Green too. And then I got the core set books, and I loved the world building that they put into Delta Green. And that's what really hooked me was getting the Handler's Guide and reading through the Handler's Guide. That Delta Green completely.
That kind of really surprised me, the Handler's Guide. Because I got the Agent's Hand because I bought the box set.
Same.
So I got the Agent's Handbook, read it, its rules, its whatnot. I've got mine behind me somewhere.
Yep.
And then I went into that. Then I picked up the Handler's Guide, and being used to Pathfinder, I expected it to be core rulebook, game mastery guide sort of thing. Or I think in D&D you've got the player's handbook and also the game mastery guide. Yeah. The DM's guide, sorry. So I thought it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be, these are the rules, but this is how you play, sort of thing. And when I got it, and the fact that the first 20, 30 pages are a timeline.
That was amazing.
1920, this happens. And it's just, and you kind of link it not only to real world events, but to operations
Yes.
that aren't even published yet.
And in addition, you also have it linked to like Lovecraft's world so thoroughly. And I happen to be a really big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and just cosmic horror in general. Like, I'm building tattoo sleeves of like great old ones. Like, the newest one is The King in Yellow, who I know is not Lovecraft, but he counts and he's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have Cthulhu over here. I have Yog-Sothoth over here. Eventually, I want Azathoth. Yeah, I love me some cosmic and weird horror. Yes. So the way they interweave like real world events and tie them to Lovecraft and meld those two worlds into one is just brilliant. And then Detwiller's like art on top of it is just so good. And the way and it's so well written. Like, the whole thing is just a complete beautiful package, and I love it.
It is fantastic. And I really was quite unaware of Lovecraftian horror. Aside from, Cthulhu.
Okay.
Maybe Hounds of Tindalos, things like that. But they were just a carryover because they were in the Pathfinder games and stuff. And it wasn't until I started delving into Delta Green that this whole narrative world opened up in front of me, and it was like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, no, I've been reading like Lovecraftian fiction since I was a kid. And I've loved it forever. Like, I have so many versions of the annotated HP Lovecraft around my house. That yeah, I love the writing, even though the man was a racist prick.
He was.
And he was, and it has to be said. He also completely changed how we think about science fiction and horror so irrevocably. And I think that has to be remembered too. Like, prior to Lovecraft's style of writing, science fiction placed mankind at the center of the universe every time. Like, you go all the way back to Mary Shelley, and it's about man trying to imitate God and take the center of the universe from God, right?
Yeah.
Lovecraft puts us somewhere off to the left in East Bumfuck. And, like, that's the horror. The horror is that we don't matter.
Yeah.
And it's such an inversion from the way everyone thought at the time, and still often thinks. It's genius. And the way other people have taken those works and adapted them and made them their own and made them so much less racist is just brilliant and beautiful. Or like with The King in Yellow, which is not Lovecraft, the way that blends the concepts of like creativity and madness being interlinked and drawing people in and having ideas be dangerous. Those things are so fascinating and really, I find, provocative. So I love that stuff.
What I always find about it, and I'm sorry, Justin, we are kind of like just waffling on here, but
go for
it. What I always find fascinating is that if you look at traditional horror, there's always rules. There's always a reason. There's always, if you open the Necronomicon, you'll create these creatures and these dead, and there's always a rationale to it. Whereas with cosmic horror, there doesn't have to be.
No,
because you don't have to understand it. And I've got a campaign kind of plotted out for the Justin and the rest of the party before we go into Impossible Landscapes. And the campaign goes through certain things, and obviously I've read through all the scenarios, and there is something in the scenario of kind of, right, what is going on here, and it explains it to you, but this is information that the players are never ever going to know.
Challenge accepted.
Of course. Yeah, and Impossible Landscapes made me a lifelong fan of Delta Green. Not just a fan, but a lifelong fan. Like, that book is the single best like pre-made scenario piece of writing I have ever encountered. I will say nothing about it because spoilers, other than to say that the way it left me feeling as and after I read it made me feel crazy.
Yeah.
The book, reading it, a book to tell you how to play a game in a pre-written scenario, made me feel crazy. That is how well written it is. Like it's such a brilliant piece of writing on top of being an incredibly well written scenario book. It's ugh.
I want to thank you for saying that, because every time I've spoken to Justin, to Chris, to Couch, to everyone I've talked about, like roping in to play through Impossible Landscapes, one of the ways I've described it is hands down the greatest ever campaign written.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, easy.